You're listening to the Scaling Wellness Podcast, the podcast dedicated to sharing the what, why, and how of scaling your wellness practice, as well as sharing inspiring stories of how others did it themselves. I'm your host, DJ Turner, author, agency owner, houseplant lover, and your go-to guy for scaling your wellness practice. If you're looking for tips on how to grow your team, book more clients, and get out of the day-to-day in your practice, you've come to the right place. Now sit back, relax, and let's get into the episode. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Scaling Wellness Podcast. Today's episode, I'm sitting down with Dr. Ernest Kim. Now, Dr. Kim is the proprietor of Back on Point Wellness, a clinic that boasts 2 chiropractors, acupuncturists, and 4 massage therapists. And with their 6 treatment rooms, Back on Point Wellness focuses on delivering the highest quality of both ancient holistic healing, but with a modern twist. Now, let me tell you more about Dr. Kim. Growing up as a rebellious kid from a broken home, he found himself lost and directionless in life. And in his quest to find the meaning of it all, he was increasingly held back by various mental health problems. And despite this, he still held true to his passion for self-care, which really defined his journey in life. He initially was studying business and he would switch to pre-med and then psychology due to his previous struggles he had with his own mental and personal health. And after college, he thought of a way to combine all of this. So he took a psychology degree and he went and pursued massage therapy as well to pursue a sort of new field where he could go and combine these different disciplines and find something that was more fulfilling for himself and able to help his clients and patients in a new way. And so despite the challenge, he decided to continue on. He eventually went back to school, went for a dual degree program, and through all of this, through his determination and his courage, he eventually graduated and obtained the licensure to not only be a massage therapist, but to also become a chiropractor and acupuncturist. Now, this is a really cool episode. One of the few times I had the opportunity to talk to someone who is educated in all of these different disciplines. So if you yourself personally are still very much wearing the healer hat, or that's the number one hat in your business, this is really cool. Someone, Dr. Kim, he's gone and went and continued with his own education to be able to find new ways to help and also be able to move across this spectrum of different types of body work that he could do for his clients and his patients. And he's built a really great team, a really great business. And so inside this episode, we get into his journey of becoming this multi-licensed practitioner, how he overcame his own starving healer mindset, really important one. What it took to build a powerhouse team. What are some of those things that he's done to push himself to be able to grow this practice? What are some of the toughest parts, things you can maybe avoid or things to look out for? What are some of those traits that you need to be successful? Really how he defines it for himself and his own personal recipe for success. I love getting to have him and guests like him on the episode or on the show just to talk about how are we defining success and what are those different things that it actually takes to get there. So Dr. Kim, he's a really amazing guy. This is a really fun conversation. Without any further ado, here's my interview with Dr. Ernest Kim of Back on Point Wellness. So Dr. Kim, thank you for joining me today. I'm really excited to dive into our conversation. One of the first things I like to do is just get some context for everyone. So can you describe your practice as is today? How big's the team? What's the space like? The services you offer, and just what Back on Point Wellness is all about.
Yeah. Hey, DJ. Thanks for having me on. So we're a wellness center. We specialize in chiropractic, acupuncture, massage. That's like our main focus. We also have other services like cupping, stretch therapy, herbal consultations, orthotics consultations, and we also do rehab exercise. So those are kind of our adjunct therapies that we have, but overall we're sort of like a wellness center. So our practice, we have about 2 chiropractors, an acupuncturist, 4 massage therapists, 6 treatment rooms. So any given day, we have all of those practitioners available. And my focus and vision was to create a wellness center that's sort of like a one-stop, that you can get your acupuncture treatment, massage, chiropractic, possibly on one day. So that's kind of the gist of our office here.
Mm-hmm. And so I like getting to know the people as well as the practices. And doing my research, I got to see some of what your history was, and we'll dive into it. But I want to really turn back the clock and say, if we look back at like this middle school, early high school, 13 to 15-year-old, what were you like? What were you interested in? Who were you at that time?
Yeah, um, I was a rebellious kid. I had a lot of anger. I had a lot of trauma. I grew up in a broken family. And so this journey of kind of figuring out my life, figuring out myself, that's what led me to where I am today. It's almost like my whole life was driving me, pushing me in this way, because at that age, I was very lost, very confused, and I was searching for the meaning of life. And I had a lot of anxiety, was depressed, had panic attacks, but at the same time, I was also interested in my own health and wellness. So at that age, well, I should say I was always a very thin, skinny kid. And right around middle school, high school, I started wanting to, you know what, I want to have some muscles, for the ladies. And I started getting into exercise, working out, nutrition. But at the same time, I was also dealing with all this angst and anxiety. So then I got interested in mental wellness. And then that led me to meditation and wellness. And then I started having issues and pain in my body. I had really bad low back pain around that time. And that put me on a quest to figure out what's happening with me at such, I'm like, I'm too young to be having this issue. And so that's kind of what led me down this whole path of wellness.
And I'm interested in the specific journey that you've taken in wellness. I was looking at, your educational background and seeing how you have gone through just a very well-rounded education, especially in like body work, especially starting with education as a massage therapist, coming into acupuncture, and now being a doctor of chiropractic. Just want to hear more about that journey, what that was like, and what you're looking at when you started, and how did you make that decision to keep continuing your education?
Sure. So first of all, I have to let you know that my father's an acupuncturist, so I'm a second generation practitioner. However, growing up, I did not want to do that. I was like, I'm not going to do that just because my dad does that. And I was very interested actually in business and something completely different. And maybe that was just me trying to do that, like just for the sake of it. Luckily, my father never pushed me. He gave me space to kind of figure out what I wanted. And I'm very grateful for that because I think if he pushed me, I might have not done it, even, just for the sake of that, or just to spite him, I guess. But like I mentioned, all the things that I was going through. So at a young age, I was diagnosed with ADHD. I was put on medication. I said I was a rebellious kid and I was put on antidepressants. And so I had early on experiences with medication, right? Oncology. And I didn't like how that made my body feel. I mentioned the low back pain. So I remember in college, my freshman year, I woke up from my dorm and I couldn't get out of bed. I literally was stuck and I panicked. I crawled to the ER that was on campus, and the medical doctor that examined me basically gave me muscle relaxers, pain medication, and said, go down and see the PT. And I was shocked. Like, that's it? Like, that's all you could do for me. And I went downstairs to the PT and she stretched me out, did some massage, and I walked out. I wasn't cured, but at least I walked out. And I was just mind blown that, wow, the PT actually put her hands on me, did work on me, whereas the medical doctor just prescribed me medication. So that really kind of changed my whole outlook on the wellness space and kind of finding my own, that put me on a journey of getting a lot of body work. I got a lot of massage. I actually worked at a massage clinic that had 40 massage therapists, 12-hour days of just 2 shifts, massage in the morning, massage in the afternoon. So I was a front desk organizing all of that. And I remember therapists would come by me and I would kind of give them a little massage when they're tired. And they're like, hey, you have really good hands. Like, why don't you go to massage school? And I was like, what? Me? I don't know. I don't know if I want to do that. But after hearing that over and over again and me getting a ton of massage there, I kind of one day was like, you know what, maybe I want to give that a try. So I was in college, my sophomore year. I took a whole year off to go to massage school. And it was a year-long program. It was a really prestigious school. They're closed since then, but it was a really good school. Learned a lot. And then I went back and finished my last 2 years of college while practicing massage. And so once I was done, oh, and by the way, in college, I started as a business major. I switched to pre-med, and then I had that experience with my whole back, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do pre-med. So then I switched to psychology. So I finished college with a psychology degree, and I was a licensed massage therapist. And I just felt like I wanted to combine the two. I wanted to do something a little bit more. And so my next thought was, well, maybe acupuncture, because then I can practice helping the energy within the body, right? And then I can do my massage. I have my psychology background and also my own personal journey of meditating and studying a lot of kind of Eastern philosophy around mental well-being and spirituality. And so I just thought, okay, maybe that would be a good way to practice. So the school that I went to offered what's called a dual degree program, where you can take chiropractic classes in the day, so from 8 to 5, and then acupuncture classes from 6 to 9. It was a pretty intense program. And I thought, well, maybe I can do both and get both degrees. So that's what, started my journey on getting a license in both, because otherwise you would have to do schooling separately. They're each 4-year programs. Yeah, it was probably the toughest years of my life. I was probably the least healthiest during that time. Studied my butt off, but it was definitely worth it. And once I finished, I had a kind of a well-rounded background of massage, acupuncture, chiropractic, psychology background. And so that's kind of how my practice has kind of developed through all of it.
And so you now have this education, you had an interest in business, a second generation acupuncturist. How did the vision for Back on Point, or at least what it would come to be, how did this vision first come about? Did you know from day one you wanted to open your own practice?
No, I didn't. So from day one, I worked at my father's office and I worked at another clinic part-time, trying to build my own practice, trying to build my clientele, my patient base, I guess. And, my dad was very old school mentality, very tough. He wasn't going to, just give me handouts. He wanted me to work hard for it, which I really appreciate. And working with him and working at the other office. And one day, the other office that I was at, the chiropractor, he kind of just suddenly retired. And so we had all these patients, nowhere to go. And I was kind of almost forced into starting a practice, And so, I wasn't prepared for it, but I felt like, okay, I have to do this. And so I started my practice in 2015. That was in, city of Bellflower, California. When our 3-year lease was up, I moved the practice to my hometown, Torrance, South Bay. We built the office from scratch. So in 2019, we built the office from scratch. It was supposed to take 3 months. It took over a year. So fast forward 2020, January is when we're finished with all the remodeling and construction. And by the time we opened our practice, it was like a brand new practice, because a lot of the patients I had lost from that whole year. And then, of course, the pandemic happened. So it was 2020 was pretty rough. It's essentially turned into basically starting all over again.
And I want to look at some of those different pieces. I think my first question would be, it's really easy to look at things now and say like, wow, this is really awesome and looks really successful and this team is large and things going well. So you started the business, then also moved, and then were shut down with COVID. In that first iteration, what did the first year of business look like? So at the point where you said, okay, I have a business now, what was that like? Was it just you? How was the team? Just what was going on in that first year?
Yeah, so going back to your previous question, my original vision, right? So when I was thrown into kind of starting my own practice, my vision was, okay, I want to be able to offer all these services under one roof, right? So I always wanted a practice where we had a lot of different practitioners and you can come in and get all these different services, because this is what helped me, right, in my own recovery. And I felt like I wanted to be able to offer all those options for people out there, right? Because you need chiropractic, acupuncture, massage. stretching, rehab, all for different aspects of your recovery in different phases. And so when we first opened, I wasn't able to offer all of that at once because obviously you need a team, right? So when we opened here, I started looking for all these practitioners and providers, and I specifically received treatment from all the providers we have here. I specifically handpicked and received treatment from because I was under the mindset, if I'm a patient, would I want to come here and get treatment from all of these different providers? So the first year was tough finding, the providers. I wanted to find not necessarily the best, but the ones that shared my same vision. Because ultimately, vision number one is having this practice. Vision number two was all of us being on the same mindset, same vision, same mission, which is a heart-centered approach. I feel like there's a lot of practices, a lot of practitioners out there that are either one or the other, which, what I mean by that is they're either they know how to treat patients really well, or they're very business-minded. It's really hard to find both. So I wanted to create a team that shared all the same values and goals. But more importantly is the approach of wanting patients to get better. I wanted to create a practice where I can take care of all the business aspects and you, the provider, can just show up and be there 100% for the patients. So year one was about finding my team that shares the same vision, can understand this and implement it. And that was pretty tough, especially because we built from ground up. So there was a time when I was interviewing like our front desk staff and there were no walls. It was literally just like a construction layout, right? And just debris everywhere and paint everywhere. And I'm just like, hey, so I'm opening a wellness center here and I want you to be my front desk. And they're looking around like, what wellness center? And I'm just trying to convince them, like, trust me, like, we're going to make this happen. And so luckily I was able to find a team, and slowly we were adding on more and more practitioners as time went on.
Oh, I want to look at what your process has been like for finding your team members. And one of the reasons it's interesting to me is I find the transitions to be some of the most fascinating times and the ones where you learn the most, especially that transition from the business of one to a business of many, or transition anytime something like really radically changes inside of a business. So this process from the business of one to the business of many, you've got the build out still going on, trying to get people to see the vision when all they see is just the construction going on. What was your approach, and if it's changed, what is it now, to just finding those right people? I understand part of it's communicating the vision. What are you looking for? Are you knocking on doors, regular job ads? Just what was the whole thing been like?
Oh man, that's a good question. A little bit of all of that. Obviously putting out ads, putting out feelers, and also word of mouth. I've had some people asking, hey, are you looking for somebody? Or they know that I was, and I get connected. I think a lot of it is also sending out the intention to the universe. I'm getting a little kind of spiritual here, but really putting out your intention, putting out the vision, and kind of helping, co-creating to manifest that to existence. But yeah, a lot of it is, I feel like when if you think of it like, if you put out your intention and you kind of focus on it, eventually it's like kind of like a magnetic attraction happens. And when you start to gain momentum, it starts to come at you more and more easily. I think that's kind of what's happened here. But really with our providers, it's about, once I kind of explain the vision and, I get treatment from them and they start here, I think we all kind of vibe off of each other. I think we kind of create this environment to where we all learn from each other, we resonate from each other, and I think that's what really helps continue that growth and continue to attract that team.
We'll be back with this episode in just a moment, but first, let me ask you a question. Does it ever feel like you're stuck on some sort of business treadmill? Despite all the hard work you put in, it feels like you aren't actually going anywhere. And at first, growing your practice and filling it with clients was everything you ever dreamed of. But now, the day-to-day of your business is starting to almost feel like a never-ending nightmare. You know you love your clients, you've maybe even built a team, and you can't imagine giving any of it up, yet at the same time, you feel like you just can't seem to escape. If that sounds like you, I want to offer you an alternative. I like to call it wellness practice freedom. It's a place where your practice gives you more than just money. When you get to this point, you're no longer the main engine in the vehicle, and instead, you finally get to act like the driver. And most importantly, you'll be in a place where you can work as little or as much as you'd like, because you know that your practice is built in a way that it can thrive without you. Sound interesting? Then I want to invite you to take the journey to achieving wellness practice freedom. During this call, we'll dive into exactly what freedom looks like for you, the changes that you need to take, and what's going to allow you to step back from your business without worrying about your income or everything falling apart. Ready to get started? Then head over to my calendar at www.scalingwellness.com/chat. Again, that's www.scalingwellness.com/chat. Now, let's get back to the episode. It's like I really like that thought and approach. I gotta say, I'm the kind of person that I think for a very long time, it's like I resisted personally, or like it gets very woo of like you gotta put something out there and the universe will attract it, and like you can put whatever name you on it, but it'll happen. I'm thinking like very anti that. But I know something that had helped me kind of is, well, one, when you change your thoughts, I think you do deep, like subconscious level, your actions start to change. You don't even realize that. Another thing is the more clear you can be on the vision, everything else starts to, like, you can kind of reverse engineer everything else. Like if you know exactly what the thing is that you want, then it becomes, well, this wellness center is going to need X amount of providers. It's going to have X amount of square feet. We're going to have X amount of this and that, and all sorts to become really real really quickly. And I mostly mentioned that I know that's my own journey through it. And if any listeners, I think most people, maybe I'm more, I don't want to say left brain, but like my educational background is engineering. So if anyone's like in that side, like come over to the woo, like it works. Like start to, like, you don't have to go all the way, but like start to shift a little bit over more. There's some good stuff in there. Like absolutely. So one of the things I wanted to ask about is something that I just feel like isn't discussed enough, especially in the wellness space. And maybe it's a little bit different with chiropractors. I've seen this, but I'm just curious about your own relationship with money. So I love being someone who kind of exists on the outsides of industries where I see the conversations that chiropractors have tend to be very different than massage therapists have. I do see chiropractors more often be comfortable with money than I see massage therapists, but they're still, I think, really commonly shared in wellness as a general is this idea of like the starving healer of like, I have to do everything I can for the patients, which is good, but then it starts to be at the detriment of the practitioner themselves. And so I'm just curious, you've got patient-centered care, making a profit. They aren't really opposites, but there's like this spectrum of how people tend to think about wellness businesses. How do you navigate that spectrum, and just like what's your relationship like when it comes to money?
Yeah, I'd have to change my mindset on money times throughout my journey here. I started as a massage therapist and I was very much that, very starving healer mindset. And at one point I was even thinking, I'm okay being a massage therapist for the rest of my life and just living kind of, I guess you could say, a simple life, But then I started thinking, like, am I really going to be able to offer? And my style of massage is very deep tissue, expending my energy and really giving my also. I was thinking, will I be able to do that, into my 60s, 70s, 80s? And felt like maybe not, right? And even throughout chiropractic school, I was never really focused on, I'm going to start a business and I'm going to make X amount of money and this is what it's going to be like. I was kind of naive about it. I figured, once I graduate, I'll start working and I'll have patients and I'll make money and that'll be great. So I didn't really have a solid business plan, even out of school. It wasn't until I started working, building my patients, that I kind of got I guess you could say, taste of success, taste of money, because it started building. And that's when I realized my potential. That's when I realized, wait a minute, I have potential here to build this into something much bigger. Instead of just being complacent with what I'm making right now, I could turn this into something much larger than myself. And I did a lot of, I guess, studying. I took a lot of courses and listened to a lot of videos and talks, podcasts around entrepreneurs and around money. And that really shifted my mindset. And unfortunately, there's a lot of chiropractors out there who are only focused on money, and their whole practice is focused around that, centered around that. And as patients, sometimes it feels like you're being sold, like it's like a car salesman trying to sell you on something. And I don't really agree with that either. So I think there's a spectrum here of being like the starving healer to a used car salesman. And I try to be somewhere in the middle, I guess. But at the same time, money is not bad. There's this kind of, some people have this idea that money is bad, and it can be. Greed can become an issue. But I think if you're offering something that's of value to people, you should be compensated for it. And I think when you shift your mindset and understanding and know your worth and the value that you're offering to people out there, then your relationship to money changes. So I would say that my mindset around money has shifted, and it still does. It continues to shift, and it's been a journey. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I just think it's something that more people should have conversations about. And I think when you look at growing a business, anytime you grow a business that's just not yourself, I feel like your mindset around money has to change. And then also it's very different from, let's say, if you start as a massage therapist, depends where you live. We're looking at the amount of revenue that might be generated by one person could be 50 to 100,000 in a year, maybe something less if you're employed. That's like not unreasonable. And then more money isn't necessarily the goal in and of itself, but we talk about a place of like six figures, multiple six figures being a reality. I feel like there's like kind of a massive chasm that you have to get across to start to say, oh, what is over here, and what's this all about, and what does this mean, and what does this entail, and just a lot attached to it. In a similar regard, so you've had to change how you view money. I'm also curious about how you've changed in the process of just business ownership, especially in being a practitioner and owner. Seriously, a little bit, I see it a little bit different with chiropractic offices, because a lot of times the chiropractic service is one of the big like core centers, and things kind of circle out around that, but everyone's a little bit different. Really, I'm curious as the business has grown and you've grown, how has your role changed, especially things you've had to start doing more of or start doing less of as the business has grown?
So still a work in progress. I guess, what I'm working on is my work-life balance, because I got into this and became a business owner and have this kind of multidisciplinary practice so that I could work less, so that I'm not working 6 days a week, 60, 70 hours a week or more. It's still a work in progress. I'm still working on it. But what's changed for me was there was a time when patients would come into the office and I would recognize every single one. I would know their face, maybe not their name, but I would know their face. I would know why they're here, like they're getting a massage today or they're seeing me today. And as the practice started to grow, there's people that walk in who I don't know, like I've never seen them before. I don't know what service they're here for. I don't know who they're going to see. And in the beginning, that was kind of scary for me, because when I knew all the patients, when I knew what they were here for, I felt connected to them. I felt like I knew that they were going to get good service here, and I know them personally. I can say hi. But when the practice grew to a point where I didn't know, I got worried. Like, are they going to have a good experience? Like, are they going to be taken care of? And I realized that I just have to let go and trust. I have to trust that what I've built, what we've done here is for the best, and that the business is sort of like its own entity. In the beginning, it's a baby, then it starts to grow, it starts to become a toddler, it starts to learn how to crawl and walk, and then eventually it runs. So that was kind of interesting for me, and it still is. It's still kind of amusing for me when I see people in the lobby and like, oh wow, never seen you guys here before, but I'm just so happy to see you here, and kind of trusting in that.
And so I know you're in the process of growing now, but I want to look at the things that, you've accomplished so far, and also a little bit of to where you're going. When it comes to growth, I think there's a lot of different ways to approach growth, how people have approached growth in their business. I think two easy ways to look at is, I've seen this from storytelling, and this is like, you've got the gardener who says, I'm going to plant these seeds and water them, and I'm not 100% sure what's going to grow into, but I know I'm going to tend to this and it'll be something beautiful. And we've got the architects who sit down and they map out every single piece and they say, okay, I've got it. Now I'm going to go build that. When you've been growing your business, what's your approach been? Has it been a hard on one side or the other, something in the middle? Just how have you approach to growth?
Yeah, the toughest part of growing the business, and especially the last couple years of being, we started right in the thick of the pandemic, right? Where we didn't have to shut down completely, but there was a time when it was just me coming in, or like we're extremely limited. And for me, the toughest part of growth is getting into the survival instinct. You're like month to month and you're barely making payroll and you're barely paying all the expenses. It can be really stressful. It can be like, it really kind of gets into your survival mode instincts, and trusting in that, living day to day, moment to moment, month to month is difficult at times. But yeah, I guess my mindset on growth is more like the gardener of watering. There's a motivational speaker who talks about bamboo trees. I guess in the beginning, you have to water them for years before they sprout. So it's been like that for me here, is being patient, trusting, and just tending, growing, nurturing, allowing the process to happen.
Now, on the other side of things, there's no business or business owner that I've met that hasn't made either some sort of mistake or just had a lesson that they went through that wasn't very fun to learn. For yourself, is there a mistake or hard lesson that stands out to you as something that you really learned a lot from?
Yeah, there's a couple things. One is the build out. So I mentioned, in 2015, I was thrown into my practice. That practice was also built from scratch, but it was a smaller sized office and it was much easier to build. Whereas this office was almost double the size, and this office was demolished completely besides the outer shell. So it was a much more rigorous build out. And so I went into it kind of, oh yeah, I know how to do this. I've done this before. And so I didn't really understand all the aspects of the architect, the blueprint, the contractor. There's so many aspects of building an office. And I feel like, if I were to do it all over again, I would be a little bit more meticulous. I'd be a little bit more understanding and questioning the contractor on more aspects of the build out so that it would have gone smoother, quicker, and less hiccups along the way. So that's one aspect. That was a huge learning experience for me. And then the other learning experience for me is marketing, especially digital marketing and social media marketing. I really undervalued it, didn't understand the importance of it. And again, I feel like if we had started that, put more emphasis in the beginning, I feel like that would have kind of launched us faster and put us in a different space quicker.
And so you'd mentioned before that you had to make a change in terms of you started reading books and listening to podcasts and all of these things. The question I have written down is, where would you say that your business acumen has come from? How did you figure these things out?
I think business acumen on some level is like a personality trait, because I remember even as a kid, we used to sell chocolate, do fundraising for trips and stuff. And I really always enjoyed talking to people, meeting with people, and, offering a product. And I think on some level, there's like, it just kind of is in you, I guess, understanding supply and demand and kind of having an interest or passion for it, I guess. And then on the other hand, it's about learning. You have to have an open mind. You have to want to learn, constantly want to learn. And I think that's something that luckily that I learned at an early age, to always keep your mind open. Even if you think you know it, even if you think, you have a firm grasp on it, just leave that door open that maybe you could learn something new. And so I'm always listening to people more successful than me, people who entrepreneurs, and I'm always learning and looking to like, can I learn something new here? And it's just something that just naturally, happens to me just out of my own curiosity. Yeah.
And I think curiosity really is an important trait. I think it'll take you very, very far as a business owner and entrepreneur. I'm curious, when you look back as the whole for the ups and downs and everything you've accomplished so far, what would you say has been your recipe for success, or at least a few ingredients that have helped you get to where you are?
Yeah. I think for me, the biggest, I guess, recipe for success is my why. Why am I doing this? And my why has always been to help other people, to offer a service that people need, to offer something that I know that this can help you. And if you focus on your why, if you focus on your passion, because that's what excites me. That's what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about my own health and my lifestyle. And I try to incorporate that into my treatments, into what I offer. So it's like I live and breathe this. And so it's easy for me to work with people because it's genuine. And I think if you focus on that, the success will come, the money will come. It's so important to have that firm understanding of your why.
So you've been able to come far. What's next for you? What are you working on, or what do you see on the horizon?
Yeah, a couple of things. I'd like to, I've had ideas of writing a book. So that's going to be, I have to dedicate a certain amount of time to do that. I don't want to lose momentum on it. So I need to carve out the time to make that happen. We also want to offer more services here. And so I guess next is continuing to grow the business, add more services, maybe write a book, maybe create an online class or portal so I can offer my knowledge and services to more people. And so, yeah, to continue to grow, continue to expand. And I want to really get more into the online space of helping people who can't come see me in person, that maybe I can still help them in other ways.
So this has been a fantastic conversation. I got a few more quick questions. They don't have to have quick answers. My first one is, what's your current obsession? I know for me lately, it's been cooking and figuring out, one, especially what's the appropriate amount of salt and seasoning for different meats, but just how to maximize flavor and convenience. What is your current obsession?
Nice. My current obsession right now is creating content. And I create my own videos, I edit, and I'm posting on pretty much every social media platform. And so I'm trying to grow that as well. And I'm just trying to be more creative. And so I'm also actually doing auditions for commercials and print and stuff like that. So I guess my current obsession is just more in the creativity space and seeing where that takes me.
And when you think about your business journey or even your personal growth journey, really, is there any resource, a book, a course, a person, podcast, whatever, something or someone that stands out to you as a favorite or really helpful?
Yes, 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 yes. I recommend this book all the time to people. And it's called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And for those who haven't heard of this book, basically, it's a book that talks about our mind, the structure of the mind, the ego, and possibly examining if that is really who we are. Is there a possibility that we're more than just our thoughts? We're more than just a mind? And if so, what is that? And I think if that interests you, please go and read this book and find out for yourself. Because if you discover this, that there is something greater than the mind, it's going to change your life. It's going to change the way you think about life, the way you interact with people, and the way you live your life. It's going to radically transform you. And when you're freed from the incessant control of your thoughts, if you're freed from that, imagine the possibilities that will come to you.
And I love getting any possibility of tactics. I think our guests love them, or I should say, our listeners really enjoy them. Is there any specific thing someone can do and expect to see a positive, measurable impact on their business right away? Whether that's a week, the next month, the next quarter, whatever, something they know they can see a difference from.
Sure. Change your mindset. And one of the ways you can do that is by doing affirmations. So I wake up every morning and I do affirmations. And the key to doing the affirmations is not saying, I will become successful or I will become healthy. It's saying, I am successful. I am healthy. So you're doing affirmations as if it's already here in the present. It's already here in the now. And when you do that over and over and over again, like you mentioned earlier, your subconscious mind will program itself to believe that, and your actions change. So I would say start doing affirmations about the success of your business as if it's happening right now.
And we've covered a lot. Are there any final words of advice or wisdom for our listeners?
No, not really. The only thing is I hope this helps. I'm still learning and growing, and I'm really honored to be here to talk about this. And if this, helps at all, I'd be thrilled. And so wherever you are in your growth in business, whether you're just starting off, you're in the middle, or you're already successful, stay true to your passion, be patient, and I wish you all the best.
So thank you. If someone wants to learn more about you, your business, get connected with you, where's the best place for them to go?
I'm on, all the platforms. I'd say probably Instagram is probably where I'm most active. So you can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Ernest Kim, DrErnestkIm.
So thank you again, and thanks everyone watching, listening, however it is you're consuming this. That's all for this interview, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. The Scaling Wellness Podcast is hosted and produced by yours truly, DJ Turner. Administration, guest research, editing, and associate production by Helen C. For highlights and updates, follow us on Instagram at Scaling Wellness. And for more information on how to scale your practice up and get out of the day-to-day, head to www.scalingwellness.com.